Imperial China. In Imperial China, executions were often public and meant to scare citizens into obedience. Criminals could face decapitation, slow slicing, or being boiled alive, depending on the severity of their crime. Some were executed with methods that involved stretching the body or dismemberment to increase fear. Families of criminals could also be punished, making sure that disobedience affected entire communities. Crowds would gather to watch, as the government used these spectacles to demonstrate the consequences of breaking laws. Even minor offenses could result in severe punishments if the authorities wanted to make an example. Officials sometimes took months or even years to plan these punishments, and records suggest that executioners were highly trained to carry out the acts precisely to maximize terror. Tsarist Russia. In Tsarist Russia, executions were brutal and often public, especially for political enemies or revolutionaries. Hanging was common, but beheadings and firing squads were used for serious crimes. Some criminals were exiled to Siberia to die from exposure and starvation, a slow form of execution. Authorities used these punishments to maintain power and suppress uprisings, showing that no one could challenge the Tsar. People lived in fear of both secret police and public punishments, knowing that even a minor offense could escalate into death. Large crowds would often attend public executions, and officials used these events as lessons for the population, making sure that all understood the consequences of rebellion. Guards and officials sometimes made displays of force before and during executions, further heightening the fear of disobedience. The French Revolution. During the French Revolution, execution became a symbol of justice and terror. The guillotine was used to decapitate thousands of people, including King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette. Public executions drew large crowds who treated them as entertainment, with the swift fall of the blade a shocking display of power. The guillotine was considered a humane method because it killed quickly, but the fear it created was immense. Citizens understood that anyone accused of being an enemy of the revolution could be sent to the scaffold, no matter their rank or past contributions. Executioners were often well-trained, and the process was methodical, designed to minimize error while maximizing fear. Modern United States. In modern America, executions are rare, but legal in some states. Methods include lethal injection, electrocution, gas chambers, and firing squads in limited cases. Cases go through long legal processes, but once carried out, they are final and irreversible. Death row inmates are usually held for years, waiting for appeals to run out. Execution today is meant to be clinical and controlled, removing public spectacle, but the psychological burden remains immense for both the prisoner and those carrying out the sentence. Modern facilities use highly trained staff to maintain strict protocols, ensuring each execution is carried out according to law. Modern Japan. Today in Japan, executions are performed by hanging and are kept secret until the day it happens. Inmates often do not know when they will be executed, adding a psychological strain over months or years. The government maintains secrecy to avoid public outrage and protest. Death row prisoners are held alone, with minimal contact, and are only informed minutes before the execution. Families are notified afterward. Japanese authorities argue that secrecy helps maintain order and reduces public backlash, but it also intensifies fear for inmates who never know when their life will end. Prisoners spend long periods in isolation, with their days measured in routine and waiting, heightening anxiety. Saudi Arabia. In Saudi Arabia, executions are public for certain crimes, often by beheading with a sword. Crowds gather to witness, and the executions are meant to demonstrate the strict application of Sharia law. Other methods include firing squads for severe offenses or public stoning for adultery in the past. Families may also face social stigma, and citizens are reminded constantly of the consequences of breaking laws. Authorities use these executions to maintain religious and political control, ensuring obedience through fear and spectacle. Religious officials may participate in or bless the execution, giving it a sense of ritualized authority. North Korea. In North Korea, executions are used to maintain extreme control over the population. Citizens accused of crimes against the state can be shot publicly or executed in secret. Sometimes entire families are punished for the actions of one member. Videos and stories from defectors describe mass executions and show the level of fear imposed by the government. Propaganda and surveillance ensure that everyone understands the consequences of dissent. Executions may be accompanied by public announcements, parades of security forces, or displays of military power to emphasize control. Medieval England. In medieval England, executions were meant to punish and entertain. Hanging, drawing, and quartering were common for traitors, while burning at the stake was used for heretics. Public beheadings also occurred, particularly for nobility. Executions were scheduled for market days so the largest crowd could witness. The goal was both punishment and deterrence. People lived in constant awareness that minor offenses could escalate into death. Spectators sometimes waited for hours or even days to witness executions, and authorities used this attention to demonstrate the power of the crown. Executioners had to be precise, and their methods were designed to make punishments memorable and terrifying for everyone watching. Ancient Rome. Executions in ancient Rome could take weeks in cases of gladiatorial punishment or public spectacle. Christians were sometimes fed to lions in amphitheaters, while criminals were crucified or forced to fight each other. Public games often ended with death for those who lost, making the line between entertainment and execution blurred. Roman authorities used these events to show the cost of defying the state. Families and communities were expected to watch and learn. Gladiators were sometimes trained for years only to die in front of massive crowds, while criminals faced unimaginable suffering to reinforce the authority of Rome. Ancient Persia. In ancient Persia, executions were often public and meant to show the power of the king. Criminals and rebels could be impaled, thrown from cliffs, or forced to fight wild animals in front of crowds. Royal officials sometimes staged elaborate punishments to scare the population into obedience, making it clear that disobedience would be met with extreme consequences. Families of criminals could be punished, and even neighbors were expected to witness and learn from the events. Executions were sometimes timed with religious festivals or political celebrations, ensuring maximum attention. Guards and executioners were trained to carry out punishments with precision, while the crowd's fear reinforced loyalty to the king. Stories of these punishments spread quickly, serving as warnings for distant regions. Ottoman Empire. During the Ottoman Empire, executions were a public spectacle meant to maintain order and demonstrate the Sultan's authority. Beheading was common for serious crimes, while other methods included hanging, stoning, and impalement. Criminals accused of treason or rebellion often faced particularly harsh punishments to send a warning to others. Public squares or city gates became stages for these punishments, with officials ensuring that the crowd could witness them. Executioners were highly skilled, and every act was controlled to make the punishment effective and intimidating. Citizens understood that even minor offenses could escalate if the government decided to set an example. Aztec Empire. In the Aztec Empire, executions often had religious significance and were performed to please the gods. Criminals, captives from war, or traitors could be sacrificed on temple pyramids in elaborate ceremonies. Victims were often taken to the top of the temple and killed in front of a crowd as part of rituals that could last hours or days. Bloodletting and heart removal were common methods, symbolizing devotion and maintaining cosmic order. The public nature of these executions reinforced social hierarchy and warned the population about the cost of defiance. Families, neighbors, and even entire communities were expected to witness, strengthening collective adherence to societal rules. The ceremonies involved priests, guards, and musicians, creating an intense atmosphere. Medieval Japan. In medieval Japan, executions were carried out according to strict codes of law and honor. Samurai who committed crimes or betrayed their lords might face seppuku, a ritual suicide intended to preserve honor even in death. Commoners could be executed by beheading or crucifixion for severe offenses. Public executions were staged to reinforce the authority of local rulers and demonstrate the consequences of disobedience. Executioners were trained and precise, and spectators were expected to observe quietly, learning the social rules through fear and respect. Families of the condemned were often involved in the aftermath, sometimes performing rituals or attending ceremonies. If you liked this video and want to see more of it, subscribe.